She's going to be here to talk about her reelection campaign that's coming up now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn it over to Barbara and let her go from there.
Okay.
We'll have questions afterward.
That's totally fine. I did not prepare remarks. I just figured I would talk off the cuff, so this may or may not go well for me. So I just want to say thanks for having me out. I appreciate the invitation. Obviously Barbara Buffaloe. I'm in my first term as Columbia's mayor. Before that, just a little bit, I think most people know me. I'll do it like a quick background. Before I was mayor, I served as the city's first sustainability manager for 11 years. I think this helped me transition well into the role of mayor because I already knew how the city organization worked, right? I knew who it was that knew some of the old plans. I knew how the budget was put together. And also, since I was in sustainability, I got to work with a lot of community groups, both like city departments, but also community groups, because sustainability touches all aspects of community and life. Some of my focuses really over the last 3 years and going into the future have things that I've actually continued on for my professional career, which is really intentional growth for our vibrant community, like really loving the things that make Columbia special and vibrant, but also planning for the future and doing that in a sustainable and resilient way. Because for me, I use this analogy that I learned from Catherine Hayhoe, who's a climatologist and works on climate data, but she can speak really well, which is not normal for scientists, no offense, scientists. You and engineers, like not necessarily known for us understanding what you're saying. But she talked about how when we're planning for the future, so often the tradition is to look on historic data, to look at the past. And that is like driving down the highway while just looking in the rearview mirror. And so the idea of this sort of, you can do both, you can check your history, right? You can check your rearview mirror, but also you need to be looking to the future. Where are there opportunities for improvement? Where are some of the best practices we can do? And let's put that into place here in the city. And then for me, some of the other things was stepping into this role. You know, we had a new city manager, we had a bunch of new department heads. We were having a brand new council. I think only like one person was continuing on. So it was really a time of transition. And to me, it was kind of, let's rebuild some of those relationships between the council and the staff and the community to really kind of create this space for psychological safety so that we can work together. There were a lot of tensions between really council and staff and like department heads that you could see staff not bringing forward major projects that needed to get done because they were worried about how they'd be treated at council. And so I really just wanted to kind of correct that. I wanted to re-level that playing field. And so some of the things we've done is, you know, we do department head and council retreats now, where we get together and not only talk about key priorities and issues that the departments are dealing with, but we also have that time to just break bread together, have coffee, like informal kind of networking while you're both, you know, in the buffet line. And I think those relationships are what are helping build both the trust that council can have in the professionals on staff, and also the trust that council will listen to the staff and what their needs are and make the decisions for their betterment and for the community's betterment. It's also interesting stepping into this role because even being at the city, you know, I knew things took time, but it's so frustrating sometimes how long things can take. If you think about it, you know, one of the first things that we did when I came on council was ask staff, what really should we be doing about trash, right? We know that it's going into the red and we're having issues. What should the solution be? So, you know, from that, the first time I ever talked about trash or roll carts was in 2012, I think. And so fast forward, we have roll carts in 2024. So I was just thinking about the time it takes and really, I think the lesson that example always makes me think about is that when an organization is talking about making a change, they sometimes do all of the thinking and work like in their meeting rooms or at their desk, like going through like, okay, and then this is what would be the cost, and this is how we would implement. And sometimes it's hard to remind staff to take their head up and go out into the community and be like, so we have a problem, right? We have, you know, 89% turnover in this issue because it's a hard job. We have $350,000 in annual workman's comp, right? You're recycling. It's like, here are the things we have, and here's some potential solutions. That came up like at the end of all the analysis, and it was kind of like, well, too little, too late, right? You need to have these conversations. And so we're really trying now as a city organization is to proactively put out there, like, here are some things we see on the horizon, right? Transit's a perfect example. The housing assessment that we just did with the county, where we're looking at as Columbia grows, this is how many housing units we're going to need. Where are we going to put them, right? Having these conversations about what does Columbia look like in 2050, in 2075, like what does it look like and how can we think on this? So I say that to say, like, you know, a lot of my priorities over the last 3 years have been what are the issues, the biggest issues we see in the immediate future, but also what do we need to be doing to plan for the future, right? And getting some of that data and gathering the inputs into it. I think when I did the kickoff last week, you know, some of the things that we talked about were we'll continue to invest in safer neighborhoods, you know, thinking about over the last, I guess, 2 years ago, we did an investment in all city employees. It was about $10 million that we did to increase pay for all of our city employees. That both started the starting pay so that we now have a philosophy of leading the market. You know, we were trying to just be middle of the market for a long time because we didn't want to compete with the other businesses and organizations and institutions in town. And you saw how well that worked for us with our vacancy rates, and every department had vacancies. So we changed that philosophy last year to lead the market. And so we saw that in our vacancy rates dropping drastically over the last year. We also put in compression pay fixes. So not just starting salaries are increased, but also employees that have been here for a long time, increasing their pay so that they're making more than a cent more than a new person coming in. And did that with our unions, right? Did that with the police union, the fire union, and our laborers union. And so thinking about those sort of solutions now, I think that help us achieve our issues later. Some of the other focuses have been on infrastructure, the literal foundation of our community. So thinking about things like road improvements. For the first budget year in, I don't know how long, we actually have a fully funded street maintenance budget. So I think it increased by something like 35%. Now part of that's capital sales tax and part of that transportation sales tax, part of it's capital improvement and part of it's general fund. So I think really just trying to invest in the organization is one of my key priorities so that we can continue for this future. And I'll just say I'm looking forward to the next 3 years. I think we have a lot of momentum going and getting things done. Just some of the things that top off my mind, you know, we're finally talking about a location for the Southwest Water Tower, started the construction for the water treatment plant improvements, the improvements to Forum Boulevard, which was like our last project on the 2015 capital improvement sales tax ballot. And we will be talking about transmission line, and I fully expect it to be a question at every forum over the next 3 months. I see my friend David in, and he would say the number one thing we were talked about when we campaigned in 22 was roll carts. So now I'm glad that won't be a question on everyone, but who knows, maybe it will come up. I'll just say I'm looking forward to continuing to do this. It is a little bit of a challenge to both do the job and campaign for the job. So I'm trying to balance this well while also still seeing my family, who I really like. Yeah. So I'm moving out of questions. I didn't plan remarks because I figured this is a group that likes to ask questions.
What kind of feedback are you getting about roll call?
You know what's interesting about that, Pam? I fully expected lots of hate email. I've gotten 2. And some of them, they're more practical. Like, yeah, I actually have a question on how to do this, or what can we do about bike lanes? And so this is a conversation that, you know, staff needs to have. And so for us figuring out how to have people place them and where to go.
You don't mean 2 pieces of hate email. You mean 2 emails total on roll cards?
I've gotten 2 emails.
Oh,
yeah. But that doesn't mean email me now. You guys are all like, oh, okay. Didn't get on that. Yeah.
I thought you would be getting positive feedback about the role.
I do get some. Yeah. I guess I was just more like, I expected the negative. Yeah.
Okay, my main question is, obviously, you know, I support your campaign.
You were my first donation.
I know, it was exciting. And thank you for the handsome card.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. I owe some of you cards. I'm still working on them from last Tuesday.
But that's okay. But what the problem is is how to respond to people with a lot of the negative garbage that's out there. There's a lot, I mean, it's pretty well organized. Do you have responses for some of the major topics?
Yeah, so I think so I will tell you for my own mental health, I
Mhm.
stopped reading the comments
Yes.
probably a year ago.
Okay.
I also had to stop. I had to unfortunately turn off comments on my social media last year, ironically because of a fake account that was posting positive things. And I know the person, and I know that they do not like me, so I knew it was a fake account. So I reported it to Facebook, and they're like, "Well, there's nothing really you can do." And because of First Amendment, I can't delete bots or any sort of comments like that. So the recommendations that I got from the Georgetown Law Center was just don't have any at all, because then you don't accidentally create a forum. And you know, Superior County Sheriff's Office has done something similar, because which is unfortunate, because like, you know, when I post my weekly videos, I would like to know, like today's video is going to be about the flu, which by the way, I will get into your comment, but just a quick note, just quick PSA. We just got a report from CDC at 907, I think, is our this week's, which is the highest it's ever been. It is the highest since we started tracking in 2004. And that doesn't even track people who not get tested. So get your flu shot, wash your hands.
Finish your thought. It's the highest number of people
With the flu.
with the flu
With the flu
they
in
know
Boone County.
that they know about.
Exactly. Because yeah, if you don't get tested, then I don't know. So yeah, so just really encourage you, wash your hands, stay home if you're sick, all the good things, just reminder, get your flu shot. But so I would love to then, if somebody had a question, right, and I could answer it, I would love to have that opportunity for engagement. Unfortunately, as a volunteer, and I don't have like a full-time, you know, staff to kind of monitor, I didn't have that opportunity. I don't have that opportunity to really kind of engaged on that piece. One of the things that I think of is trying to create other opportunities for people to engage with me, to ask those questions. So, you know, I have on, it's kind of a post-it then on social media. The first thing it says is email me, right? I mean, I'll email back, mayor@como.gov. You can call the office and talk to me. We can set up a coffee hours. Like there's other ways besides just on like Facebook comments. The thing I will say is to like the most things that we see, and if you've seen some of the latest videos, we've been talking a lot about homelessness and public safety. So some of the things that we were talking about, I even brought this up last night at the Columbia Board of Realtors Forum, you know, percentage violent crime numbers are down 23% since 2022. Obviously, no crime is acceptable to a mayor or a community member, right? You don't want any of it. So what are we doing to be preventative with that? Alarming for me in those numbers are actually the number of youth involved, both as victims and the arrestees. And so what are we doing on the preventative end of this? Now, as it was mentioned last night at the forum, a big issue with that is access to guns. A lot of these are firearm related incidents. And so access to guns. And so we talk about safe storage. We do a campaign with the Columbia Public Schools on safe storage to make sure that responsible gun owners are locking up their guns so that children don't have access to it. But then also last year we created the Office of Violence Prevention, and actually the city manager and a staff are in interviews today talking about or doing the interviews for the coordinator position. The idea of this job was I stole from other cities who are doing a similar thing. Our thing decreases is that you have a person who's coordinating the community groups that are working on preventative measures. And they're working within neighborhoods, within schools, within church groups to find like kids that you need, kids that might need help, that need connections, as well as people like we're talking about reentry, getting them back into the job workforce. So those are some of the efforts that we're really putting our money behind in coordination. And then on homelessness, right? When we talk about this is a complex problem that is not unique to Columbia. You know, the opioid crisis and the housing crisis came together in a perfect storm where we have people struggling to make ends meet, struggling to stay in either it's their rental or their home because of sometimes issues outside of their control. So we're trying to really be focused on putting money into social services and also funding housing. So we've been aggressive with approving housing, new housing coming in. The housing assessment that we did with Boone County, a big role of that was to identify our current the current, environment of what we have and opportunities to change. So we're expecting, like, we've made some changes to like accessory dwelling units or mother-in-law units to make them easier for people to build. So you can have more kind of smaller places for people to live in neighborhoods. We're reviewing, used to be that certain lot sizes were not legal, even though there had been a house there. Basically making, if it had been platted before, it's a legal lot size and you can build on it to try to increase additional housing units to be built. And we're talking more about how can we make more walkable neighborhoods, which can potentially have a little bit more density, but it's really about creating options and types of housing. And then obviously on the social services side, it's supporting things like, by us purchasing the former VFW, the Ashley Street project, Room at the Inn now has a year-round location, which gives them the stability to like know where they're going to be and start to invest in their needs. So now they have case management there. So those who are experiencing homelessness can actually get services and potentially get additional help to get back on their feet. Turning Point, when Opportunity Campus is built, Turning Point and Room at the Inn will move into that. And so we'll have with additional social services around it to really help wrap around what is needed there. And then obviously partnering for mental health and substance abuse. These are big ones that we're working on. But when I say it's not just unique to Columbia as an issue, it's also like it needs to have the regional approach. So Boone County, the county commission and the city, as well as the prosecutor's office, we're advocating at the state level for like the Department of Mental Health to put more resources into communities to help us. So right now, we have like, I don't know how many, over 100 people that are either in jail waiting their competency hearing or in hospitals waiting their competency hearing, or they've been deemed incompetent, but there's no place for them to go. And so they don't have a home, we don't have as much supportive housing. And so asking for the state, we really need you to invest in this to help us, because this is not just a Columbia problem. This is a statewide problem.
So one of the, I'm just bringing up things I'm hearing in response to my discussion.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've heard is that people feel unsafe, that it's moving, the location of the Room at the Inn in that neighborhood. Does that seem, is that a reasonable concern of that neighborhood, or how is the safety of that area?
Are you talking about Turning Point or Room at the Inn?
The Room at the Inn of that new building that you bought.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get answers.
Yeah. So I think, one of the things that we tried to do was obviously, where's perfect, right? Where's the best location? Yeah. For us, it was really about the opportunity that the building presented to itself as far as the choice of where it was. We also were able to switch over a bus route so it could come by so that people could ride the bus. Yeah. And then like Turning Point, a lot of the churches provide shuttle systems for people to kind of come. We have upped some of our sort of like patrols, people kind of like keeping an eye on for safety and around. And I know we've talked about hiring security for the location as well. I think it's a tricky thing when you talk about where
it's like perfect.
Exactly. And I think it's more of the in other cities you see the ones that work well are the ones where really they're trying to have kind of like community values. Like this is, if you're going to be here, this is what we promise to do, and the sort of behavioral norms that you expect. But then also having the supportive services around to help connect people, as well as having safety and security to make sure that those surrounding neighbors are safe too. Yeah.
I'm going to pick up a question from the chat. Debbie Finley's online. She's the chair of the Boone County Democratic Party, and she says there was significant negative feedback on the flock cameras coupled with fear. What is being done to address this fear? How can we address this?
Yeah. So before we adopted flock, we adopted a surveillance policy that talked about how we would use data, of which it's capturing the license plate images or potential images of people. And so we have standards in place for also it would automatically flag, for instance, if somebody is requesting to view, like limited people are able to go in and view the data that's there from the police department. And then also there's automatic checks from like the sergeants and lieutenants on when they see people requesting it, that they will automatically check and do audits on whether they're requesting. At the same time, we have asked our representatives and our lobbyists at the state level to request that the data that's captured in those to be redacted from sunshine requests or protected from that, because there was concerns that came up at the city council meeting. What if somebody just sunshines that data to stalk an ex-girlfriend or to see where women are getting health care? And so we've requested at the state. Now, this is the interesting thing about our state. There's so many interesting things about this area. But sometimes when we are talking about, this is for people's their privacy, we have to be careful on how we ask it. So we've been fighting for years to get, for instance, youth addresses not be allowed to be provided from like some of our recreation applications to be redacted for their own safety. And they have yet to pass it, but that's just because I think they struggle to pass anything in Jefferson City. So that's one of the ones that we're requesting right now to have that be for protection. Thanks.
Just a follow-up question on the crime. You mentioned earlier that we had lower numbers. Is that per capita or is it total lower numbers?
Number of incidents.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So if we look at, the Missouri State Highway Patrol has kind of the crime data, and this is the tricky thing. It changes because sometimes an incident gets closed, right? When it shows up as being closed or when it shows up as happening, the data can kind of change. But I looked at it yesterday morning, and if I compare 22, 23, 24, we're down from 22 violent crimes, 22%. Now, again, but if you see a shots fired report or anything, right, that's alarming. You don't want to see that. And so it's more of the how do we communicate what we're doing? Because I saw I think it was on KBIA, somebody was reporting on it, and they said, well, the data says that it's down, and a person said, well, I didn't use data to make my statement. And I'm like, okay, and you saw that's what you're up against. That's what you're up against, right? Is trying to get out the information that's there, but also at the same time understanding that your perception or your experience is your reality. And so I understand that. How do I help communicate what we are doing? Like last year, we hired 40 new officers. Increased pay, put resources in. At the same time, if you still had an incident downtown, then that's scary, and I don't want that to happen.
Bill, you had your hand up earlier.
I'm here, Mayor.
Okay.
My question to you today is, we've got a lot of turmoil in DC. How is it going to affect us?
That's a really good question. Do you need me to repeat the question? Do they hear it?
You can, and I'm typing it in.
Oh, okay. I'll let you do that.
Sorry.
Okay. I will focus on local. Bill, that's the main thing that I can do is focus on what of the chaos I can control. In part, some of the actions that I've taken, updating our Congress people to let them know about, for instance, if they stop all the infrastructure funding that came out over the last 2 years, Columbia will miss out on $32 million in transportation infrastructure funding that we were promised. And that's not for it's not like I'm giving everyone an electric bike. It was for road safety, road improvements, some improvements to our bus systems, for infrastructure to put into place. So these are things that really do impact everyone's daily life and for the betterment and provide good paying jobs. So just to try to advocate at that end. For some of the other things, I check in with our local police department and the city manager, and I'm like, do any of these potential things, will they impact us? And I hear from them, we're focused on local safety. We're focused on Columbia, making sure people here are safe and bringing down violent crime, not necessarily going out and seeking information. I will say the biggest concern I have about it, Phil, really is kind of to Sue's point, the negativity that's out there is turning neighbors on neighbors, which does not help us. And in reality, we live here because we love Columbia, right? Raising our families here. It is a great place to live. It's the fastest growing city in Missouri. This is the place people want to be. and making sure that we're focusing on that and not letting like the negativity kind of impact our interactions with each other. That said, we saw in the November elections that a lot of people were frustrated, right? They were seeing their monthly budgets go up. They were seeing expenses, but not salaries increase at the same level. And so figuring out what we can do local to really invest in families so that you can thrive here. And so that's why when I talk about social services funding going up for that, but then also how we weigh tax increases, rate increases, like trying to do it in a way so that we can make sure we're not negatively impacting people, or that we have a switch if it does happen that we can help alternate.
Thanks.
I'm letting you chair the meetings.
First, okay, so Wynn Caldwell is watching from home, and she asks if you could you talk about your sustainability goals?
Yes. Okay, so well, we expect soon for the utility to come back to us with our renewable energy portfolio standard increase. For those of you not familiar, the city owns our own electric utility. We have a renewable energy portfolio standard that says the percentage of that generation that should be from renewable sources rather than fossil fuel sources. We got, right now, it only says like 30% by 2030. It's not extreme. So we obviously want to increase that. The Climate Action Adaptation Plan calls for 100%. We're trying to work with our utility on coming up with where to get it from. We had a presentation a year and a half ago from the Energy Authority looking at what was coming online. So when I'm expecting to have that utility renewable standard come back to us on our percentage increase. And what our goal is that we want to be at least 65%, because that's the one that seems most likely by 2030, just based on if the Sykeston coal plant that we get goes offline. And then we want to put in a clause in there that we want to get to 100%. And we also want to aggressively replace any coal contracts with renewables as they end. And then also at the same time, one of the things we've been working on is doing advanced metering, which sounds very sexy, I know. It's basically new electric meters, but it would allow us to have more real-time data get to people about how they're using energy in their home. And if we have this, and we are working on it, then we can also help identify people who are eligible for renewable or energy efficiency projects, like letting them know actual data to help them, as well as real-time rates, which would incentivize people to use electricity during non-peak hours. So peak hours are summertime, you get home from work and you turn the air conditioning down because it's hot in your house. Well, everyone does that. And so all of a sudden the market is really expensive at that time. So what we want to do is create an incentive. So like, if you do that, maybe don't run the dishwasher, don't run your laundry, save that for 2 a.m., schedule that for 2 a.m. or whatever we can do. So really trying to get those in place so that it'll help us be a little bit more level on the cost that we pay for electricity. And then the other big thing for me is resilience. So as the climate is changing, thinking about what can we do to really prepare ourselves for that changing climate. So part of that is obviously the reductions of emissions, but also how can we increase grid resilience? How can I make sure that we're planning for some of the summer storms we're going to see? How can I think about our road infrastructure, having enough stormwater for some of the inland flooding that we can expect and we have experienced, and really just planning that into how we build our infrastructure.
Lisa Schwartz has a question.
It's so wonderful having the mayor who is versed in all kinds of stuff related to sustainability and climate. I know that there are communities who would be jealous of us. So thank you. Three questions I had. One, what is the holdup with the advanced metering infrastructure? I mean, where is it? Why has it not kind of happened? Two, for information on the number of businesses in Columbia that have gone solar or sustainable, who put a lot of effort into their personal,
Residential
footprint.
Oh, okay.
The businesses who put invested in their footprint, and also individuals like homes. Where can we get information on the numbers and the who.
Yeah.
and What, I don't know that, I'd love to know. that.
Yeah. So I forgot what your first question is. Oh, I remember now.
Why
Yeah,
can't,
AMI.
why can't we get the meters quicker?
Yeah.
Peter.
Hold up.
So I believe if it's not already out for an RFP, it should be soon for them the company to put them in, or basically to help us with the planning and implementation of putting them out. This was something that I know originally the utility they were trying to ask for having an RFP for the RFP. It was like this really kind of like the reliance on consultants was like, but well, no, you can put together an RFP. And thankfully the city manager was like, pause. No, like you have to just put this out there. So I believe that's already kind of gone out, but I'll confirm that and get back to you. On the second one, the demand side management report is an annual report.
The what?
The demand side management report
Okay.
is an annual report that would be a good one. That and the renewable energy report that is released annually from the utility usually comes out. The renewable energy report usually comes out closer to like August, July, because they are on a calendar year and then they have to close everything. We see a draft in February, but for some odd reason, it never comes to council until the summer. Because it has to go to Climate Environment Commission, Water and Net Advisory Board, back to the staff, then back. That should have the numbers of installs of solar, of PV on businesses. And then the demand side management report usually has the number of major projects that have happened as related to usually energy efficiency, but some of it has some of the installs of PV as well. But I will look at and see and send you last year's.
Which office manages it?
Utilities.
Utilities.
Yeah.
And is there a place to get the number of homes in Columbia that have solar? Solar themselves?
I don't know if it's on there. I will check and see if it's not. Otherwise, Google Sunroof might have some of that information. It's something that Google started years ago, and it can kind of show you your solar potential by using a heat map, which I think is just an interesting thing to see. But I will ask, I feel like it used to be in the renewable energy report, but I'll look at that and confirm.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I have one question from Dave Taylor at home. He says, Boone Electric Co-op sends text messages during peak energy use events to let us know to turn off stuff that we can do later. Is it possible for the city to implement a
That would be
similar
awesome.
system?
Yeah, I like that. Boone Electric also has time of use rates because they have AMI. They have AMI meters, advanced metering technology. And so they're also able to probably also even pick homes or customers that maybe are showing high use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dave, it's you. You're being targeted.
No.
Turn off your gadgets. Is there anybody else in here that has a question? Related? Yeah.
Or whatever.
Or well, that's okay. I've got two more.
You
I got
missed
two
the
more
one
queued.
about,
I've got two more queued up.
oh, okay.
Related?
From home. Yeah.
No, okay. My question was, is there a way in your campaign and even at council meeting to work in more education about the council manager form of government? I think part of the problem is there's a lot of misunderstanding. A lot of people think you have ultimate power
Yeah.
and you haven't done thus and so they're upset about it.
Yeah.
And I think there just seems to be a general, for instance, on Nextdoor, which I look at way too
Oh
much.
God. I find this to go.
Yeah, I need to run my own mental health, but I think they've lost track of that if they ever had it. And,
Yeah. I definitely can tell because yes, I will see. And then I bless whoever hearts it is that try to reply back to people. Like that's actually not her job, and then they just get mad at me even more. That's a great idea of doing that. We did do recently. I think it'll be up on the website hopefully in the next week or so. We had an intern working with us from the Truman School of Public Policy, and she put together a resident's guide to city council.
Oh.
And it's kind of like a city council 101, like this is our council manager form of government. This is what this means. This is the role of a mayor, role of the council. It also gives advice on how you can come talk at a council meeting, right? You get 3 minutes. It also even has a draft outline for the script. Like if you want to talk, here's in your minute 1, write down what you're going to say, write down what, you know what I mean? It's kind of like a guide. And then it talks about the wards and how to interact with different city departments. So that's one of the things we're looking to kind of push out. Because yes, it's very well known that there is a disconnect because, most people, their experience with mayor is like, the mayor on Paw Patrol or like, on TV, where they're wearing a sash, which my friend did buy me a sash. So I wore it to a couple of things. But their expectation of what the mayor is the person who is calling up the police commissioner, to stop this violent crime. And in reality, in our form of government, I cannot direct any city staff. With the other 6 council members, we have 3 employees, the city manager, the city clerk, and the municipal judge. And in reality, none of us can direct him to do anything without consensus of council, or at least 4 votes. So usually it's more of information like, hey, DeCarlin, I got an email about an encampment, behind this building. Can you see if is it possible for staff to go look at it, right? Or go find out? That's the most direction we can give, is like, can we look into this? But at the same time, you're electing your elected officials, right? You're electing your council member, your mayor. And so then what we're doing is kind of that high level priority setting, like at the council meetings, as we're getting into the next budget system. Here are things that we're hearing from our community members. What do you need to do? What can we do to address this? So that's where, we saw in this last budget, a big priority on communication, right? We have new community engagement employees that are working. We just had our first Let's Talk Local, which every month we're going to go out into a different ward with that council member and also community members or in staff and be like, what are the issues in the neighborhood? Here's something coming up, right? The one in February is 6th Ward. It's going to be at New Haven Elementary School with Betsy Peters. And they're talking about See Click Fix, which is an online reporting system or on your phone or on multiple locations, potholes, like whatever you want to do. And you can follow along with how to find what happens. And so we're trying to do more communication out. And that was because council said, this is what we're hearing. There's a lack of communication or ease of understanding of what's going on. So then the department or the city manager puts it into the budget, hires the people, and they start working on it. But there's a delay. Whereas if you see on TV, it's usually the mayor being like, we need to do this. Okay. And like, that's just not our reality. For the Let's Talk Local. Hold on, let's do this. Solving real world solutions right now. Is it? Well, hold on. Is it this month? I'm gonna have to get back to you, Sue. Hold on. Let me look it up.
Email about that. Dave Taylor, could you look that up for us? You're so good at that. We're looking
Let's Talk Local.
Let's Talk Local with Betsy Peters.
Okay, I'll get it.
Thank you.
He's great about this. I'm surprised he's already up here.
Is that right?
Are we ready for another question from the chat?
Yeah.
Okay. Debbie Finley asks, how will our local police help to protect immigrants in an ICE raid? How can we protect people who have not been accused of violent crime from being caught up in the raids? Sheriff says they're following the same procedures for the last 20 years and will cooperate when the person has committed a violent crime.
I feel it's similar. So our only agreement right now with ICE is for human trafficking. That is the agreement of which we have where if somebody is involved in human trafficking, we will partner with ICE on. Right now, we don't collect citizenship status in the information. So even if asked, we don't have any information to share on that. Our focus is on local safety and crime and issues.
Let's find out.
Wait, Let's Talk Local.
Let's talk local.
Okay.
He's a good one.
It is
Thursday, February 27th from 6 to 7:30, and it's at New Haven Elementary School.
That's in the chat for the folks at home. Let's see if I'm smart enough to get us back to where we were.
And that discussion is for her ward only?
No, anyone can come. It's just that we're doing them in each ward.
Okay.
Because sometimes there's a topic that's really open to anybody. A lot of times we're trying to focus on maybe issues of that ward. So for instance, the first one was on the Love Your Block program. This is a grant that we got funded by Bloomberg Philanthropies in partnership with Johns Hopkins. And it's small mini grants that people can apply to do something to love their block. It could be like community gardens, could be dumpsters for a cleanup. Sometimes it's benches being put in or just beautification things that people want to do together to kind of show appreciation.
We've gotten dumpsters in our neighborhood.
Yeah. It's good for like a cleanup day. Yeah. So hers is going to be on See Click Fix, which is the new software kind of reporting system that we have. I really like because you can kind of follow your complaint, right? You can see when the city staffer responds to it and sends out the truck to fix it, which is kind of neat. Yeah.
I'm a newbie to Columbia. How do you, I mean, I know about the meeting now because you just talked about it, but how would I know about it otherwise?
So we have a city newsletter that goes out with the utility bill. A lot of people get their bills online these days. So we also have it online. You can subscribe for some when our press releases about events come out to have them be emailed to you. And I think they're trying to do a better job about also just going on traditional media now to talk about some of these, because I still get a newspaper. Like I still like to read a newspaper. And I don't find scrolling on social media to be the best for my health. So I think that sort of thing is a nice way to find out about what's going on.
Is that an option too, though? The city has social media.
We do have social media, and
I've seen it.
we've put them on social media as well.
No, this is my first time here. Yeah, this is so new to me.
Yeah. Well, welcome to town.
No, thank you, but
Yeah.
I did come, and I'm so happy that Suzanne invited me, because I am a newbie and I am hearing negative things, and I've decided enough, and I need to go find out for myself. I need to ask my own
Yes.
questions, and hopefully, and so if some of my questions seem so basic, you go, oh my gosh, you're
Nope.
so
Ask them.
behind.
Ask
It's
them.
true, I am. But there's things that I'm hearing, and I don't know where to go. And Suzanne said, no, you need to come. You need to come here. I'm hearing such negative things. I'm so impressed with what you shared already. So I'm benefiting just by being here. But I'm hearing things like I don't know. I was told that you designated Columbia as a homeless sanctuary. I don't know if you did or not. I don't know if that's true.
No.
No, see, and that's what
Yeah.
I'm hearing.
So I think, yeah, and so we've talked about this. Actually, I write a monthly column in the Como magazine, and my March column is on media literacy.
Mhm.
And it's about, the tips on how to think before you share. And it's those sort of things, because, you talk about kind of being on next door, and you can say whatever you want to say on any of these things. So and that causes issues then, because then when people see people sharing them. So I always encourage people, go to trusted news sites, go to, KMU, ABC, go to whatever our local one, Missouri and the Tribune. These are local media sources that have ethics, right, on how they report on stories. Something that's just on social media is not, there might be more to it to kind of ask the question. Some of the instances in that example, we have seen a rise in homelessness. This is, again, not unique to Columbia, but we have seen a rise. A big part of it is lack of housing, lack of having enough safe places for people to live. Part of it is that we're a regional hub for health services. So the MU Psychiatric Center, when sometimes police departments from other cities bring somebody in and drop them off, they don't always take them back home. So working with our local support systems, the case managers, to make sure that people are getting reconnected with their families. Because we also know that a big part of some of the root causes of homelessness, poverty, housing, substance abuse, some of it also is loss of family, loss of relationships. And, when sometimes you're having a family member that it's difficult to work with, sometimes some families just, I have to write you off. I can't do this for me. But then that person still needs help. And so we're seeing that kind of evidence experiencing here. So yeah, I encourage, if people have a question, like if I've proclaimed us a thing, I have not. But you can also check the mayor proclamations. I have made sure that they're all online. So, but just ask.
Well, I'm happy because now I can say that it's not accurate. And then if I might ask one other, just really things that I'm hearing, I want to be able to just say, this is not accurate. I'm hearing from several sources, they're saying that the fire department and the police departments don't support you. Is that accurate, or am I overstating, or are they overstating, or it's just, I feel ridiculous in asking you this, but I just want to be able to stop this kind of stuff.
Well, I did not get the police officer's endorsement for the campaign. So, that part is true. They endorsed one of the other candidates. I will say that I support them, right? I voted for every resource that we've been requested from our police department and our fire department. I meet regularly with the police chief and the fire chief. Now, obviously, both of them are not in the union since they're administration above. But I do meet with our fire union pretty frequently. They chose not to endorse anyone in the campaign because they're in their negotiations right now, and I think they want to keep all positive friends going forward. But I think for me, I just usually ask like, show me how I haven't, and then there's my thing. Because like for me, I mean, these are the people that respond on people's worst days. Like obviously, I have all the respect and appreciation for the jobs that they do. We have community standards to make sure that we're following the values of our community, and we expect those in law enforcement and public safety to abide by those. And so I think that's just a normal understanding of anyone in these positions.
Oh, sure. I get that. And I just do appreciate your time.
Yeah.
And I appreciate being able to be part of it.
Well, thanks for coming in.
We had a question from somebody at home that just said, just curious where you're reading all this negative stuff. Where you, I know there's lots of places.
We're not reading it. People are saying these things to me.
In
And
conversation.
I haven't got, and I'm not enough involved that I can respond. So I just, okay.
So it's just coming up
But
in
I
line at the
decided
grocery
I've heard
store.
enough. I've heard enough. I need to find out for myself.
Yeah.
Rather than just hearing.
That's a
people
healthy
say
attitude.
this to me.
And base things on facts and not make statements not on facts.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, I will tell you, it is one of the this is the hardest time. I joked when I first ran, that I wanted to be like Darwin, right? I wanted to run like 15 years, take over, be the Viking mayor, because like he was my model of a mayor. And then I remember, he didn't have Facebook. He didn't have social media to deal with. Like all the negative, I mean, he had Trib Talk, I guess. So there was like a little bit of these things, but Trib Talk was like a Facebook on the newspaper, just for a new person.
It was like roses and thorns, but it was all thorns.
Yeah. So I will say, but this is also just something that we're seeing in society in all places, right? Where, you're frustrated, you're anxious, or you're seeing people suffering, and you need to have somebody to blame. And I happen to be that person.
Robin over here.
I just want to make a comment. So I knew the situation with the Columbia Police Union and the firefighters because I read the Missourian. So I suggest probably ought to get a subscription to a newspaper because they're on it, So
Okay.
the Tribune, actually, I'm biased towards the Missourian. But
I am too. I am too. Sorry.
Out loud.
Oh, well, it's because never mind. It was an automatic subscribe, and I couldn't figure it out, and they wouldn't stop it. So I got mad at them.
Stop paying for ours, and I still kept sending it to us.
You
Elena.
mentioned that the starting pay has gone up. And so has that increased the number of police officers that we have?
It has. Yes.
Staff?
Both hire as well as like those who are applying. I had a conversation earlier this week with where we were on our vacancy rates and hiring and what are we doing for recruitment. And so, somebody asked, they said, how are you like, we need to fully fund the police department. And I answered back, they are fully funded. It's just that they have vacancies. But if they found those 26 officers today, we have the money to pay for them. Like it's in the budget. Part of the issue though, too, is that we've been talking about this for years, like even before I worked on the city as city staff, is that getting people to apply to the job is a tricky one. Getting people to want to go into law enforcement. I think it's the National Police Foundation estimate that 50% of all police departments are struggling with recruitment. Or no, sorry, 50% is what their all gaps are. That's what they're all gaps of. And so when you're looking at that, it's like, well, we need to find people who want to do this job. And so that's one of the biggest issues that they've had, right?
And reasonable people who want to do that.
And that's the other thing. We have had people obviously apply. And I remember this is under Jeff Jones, somebody reached out and they were like, I know somebody who applied and you didn't hire them. And it's like, well, not everyone who applies to every job gets hired because sometimes there's some other, considerations that go into play. And so not everyone, we give a lot of power to our police department. They have a lot of power. And so you want to make sure you're getting the right people, obviously, to wield that power safely and within the standards our community has set.
Question from the chat. Peter Schneeberger asks, can you explain Columbia's policy on short-term rentals And then let us know if you're satisfied. And if you're not satisfied with policy, how would you like to see it changed?
Yeah. Well, we'll know more in June. So right now, we passed it last year in February. Short-term rentals, those are Airbnbs, VRBOs. We limited last year, and they had to start filing them in June, like for a permit to have one. Reminder, they were technically illegal because they were not under a definition of how residential places can be used. So in February, voted last year for by June or in June, and then you have a full year to come into compliance. You had to file to get a permit to have a short-term rental. You're limited to one. So it's not like you can own one and you can own another one, or you can own 10. You're limited to one. There are certain restrictions on locations. It's very complicated, Peter. And there's actually a flow chart. That's how complicated it is. I would like it to be simpler, but at the same time, planning and zoning and the staff put in a lot of time that for us, we wanted first just to get it into place so that it was legal or we had rules around it. And then to evaluate. So we will know more this June because that's when they're full year in compliance. Once we see the numbers, once we see the estimates on how many actually, how many we think are not actually limit or have not filed their permit yet, and follow on that. And then see. The big issue around short-term rentals that we heard was people's concerns over taking away of housing opportunities for people, which is why I think we did the limit on the one. I think it's also about like not knowing who your neighbors are, that sort of neighborhood connectivity. And so really trying to find that balance between the needs that we had, because we also are a big tourist town, especially during like game seasons. So that understanding that people sometimes want a variety of place to stay. And so I understand the need. I mean, I've stayed in Airbnbs and short-term rentals when I've traveled with my family. But to make sure that we're keeping in mind neighborhoods and really connecting one another and making sure we have enough housing. Yeah, question in the back.
Once a comment from Dave Taylor, please know that you're welcome to ask questions. And then I can wait. Dave's is more of a general question if you want to.
My name is Tim Wall. You were talking about social media, and the city of Columbia, they leave their comments on, okay? And, first of all, I try not to read comments because it's a trap, right? But in reading the comments on the city of Columbia page, I've noticed that it's from a lot of the same posts. And as most of the people in this room probably know, the tax records of Boone County and the city of Columbia are on the website for the public to see. And I've looked through these people that are repeatedly posting, and they're not in Boone County. And so, I really think that we are being targeted by outside propagandists. I really do.
I mean, I could see
And
that.
it's really upsetting because a lot of our constituents are getting sucked right down that rabbit hole. And so I don't know that there's anything we can do about it here, but I wanted to bring it up.
I appreciate that.
Because, so much of it is vile towards you.
Yes.
I mean, you would think that you walk around with devil horns.
I know.
I've seen that image
And
on Facebook.
Really?
Sorry, babe.
I've lived here since 1996, and this is an amazing bubble that we have right here.
Yeah.
This is an amazing place. And it has been the entire 30 years that I've been here. And lately, and much of it is probably the national politics, but the vibe. And you're talking about neighbors hating neighbors. And this is not who this town is. And so I don't know what can be done about, people posting, and they're not even here. But, it's alarming to me.
Yeah.
It's upsetting to me. And it's one of the reasons why I'm in this chair right now. This is my first time, and I won't be able to laugh.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming.
I will say, I think part of that is the reason why Boone County Sheriff's turned off comments on theirs. They turned off comments, and I think in their post they said was because they were seeing people attack each other. And they're even the positive things for the sheriff, they see people kind of attack each other, and they're like, that's not the purpose of us having social media. So yeah.
I've been saving kind of just a general question because Dave Taylor said I could come back to it later. What is the mayor's official interaction with the Boone County Commission, do you meet regularly? And then this is the one you might not want to answer, so it's up to you. Any significant policy disagreements?
Well, we have a great commission right
Yeah.
now. So I have good relationships with the Boone County Commission. I meet with the commission and the city manager once a month. And that's kind of just like, here's upcoming things that we're aware of coming. That's where the idea of the housing assessment came from, was us talking about partnering, because we wanted to do one for the city, and Kip had said, oh, the county will be interested in that too. So that's why we partnered on that. And then I meet together with Kip monthly as well, just to kind of talk about high level kind of direction things that we're seeing. I'm not sure if these are, officially what we're, what I mean? It's not in my duties and responsibilities. But for me, I view as the county seat of Boone County, it's important for me to know what's going on there. Obviously, there's a lot of confusion over what's the difference between the city and the county. And so we work on that education on what it is. But having good working relationships with my fellow electeds is obviously really important.
Well, caught up on the chat questions.
It probably looks like we have time for like one more.
I just want to say personally, I love you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And I've been one of those people that emailed you and apologized for all the violence.
Oh.
And just because I know you always hear from the complainers,
Yeah.
and the people that are happy, a lot of times they don't email.
I filter those into the box that says some good news.
Oh,
So thank you for those. I will take them.
The last thing I will say is if you ever get a chance to go to Bentonville, they have an amazing bike network.
I know this.
And if we could possibly get half as good, I mean, literally in their entire town, everywhere you live, you have access to a trail.
Yeah.
Like you can get, if you want to go to Bob's house and he lives over here, you can take a trail.
Yeah.
Now, most of that is done along the tributaries.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of put a ledge on their creeks, so it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting town.
They also have a lot of Walton Family Foundation funding that goes
They
into
do.
the bike infrastructure.
They
I've
do.
yet to get the Kroenke Foundation funding into bike infrastructure, but maybe that'll be my next thing. Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you.
It's 1:00. Is there any other last minute questions before we wrap up this portion of the meeting?
Dave Taylor says our journalists are encouraged to ask questions.
Oh, sure. Anyone here has questions?
Afterwards.
Yeah, I did have one. Your not rival, but Miss Tiny Heath, who's running for mayor. A big part of her campaign is wanting to issue those experiencing homelessness IDs so they can build up a job history. I was just wondering what your opinion was.
Yeah, this is something that, obviously our social services networks are already trying to work on, is to get people actual Missouri IDs to get them connected with that. Sometimes some of the gaps are like finding, what's your address, some of those information stuff that come in. In Missouri, Kansas City issued like a 1KC, like a Kansas City ID card. City cards have become under attack from state legislatures on trying to restrict cities from being able to do that. So really it's trying to find that balance to get people actual like identification. Yeah.
Homeless people are really a complicated group of people because a lot of them are mentally ill. I worked for an agency for over 20 years and we had the PATH program. You probably met Laura.
Yeah.
But we would find people homes and they wouldn't stay there. They would go back to their encampment. Which makes no sense to me when it's 10 degrees outside.
Yeah.
But that's what they do. And so getting them, and there are also a lot of them, have criminal histories and been in prison. People don't want to hire them. So that's another issue that makes it hard to find jobs for these people. I mean, I did help this one guy get a home. He was ecstatic. So was I, because it had a freezing rain 2 days later. So, the ones that want help, they come to places like New Horizons and Burrell and the ones, it's just hard to corral them.
And you'll hear Nick Foster say, especially from his experience at the Volunteer Action Center, but it shouldn't stop you still knocking on the door or, knocking on the door, right? Still trying, right? And so that's what you see a lot of the groups that are working and doing this sort of like Como Mobile, they're going out there. they're trying to really make sure that people don't die.
Yeah, Laura
And
comes
then-
out every week,
Yep.
every Friday morning,
Yep.
counts people and takes them stuff.
And but they want them to get into housing. They want them, right? People want they want them to be safe. And they want to, so they're going to keep on helping, trying to get them into services so that they can get safe. Because someday they will say, yes, today is the day.
Yeah, Love Columbia or whatever, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
They helped a lot of
Yes.
people find out that
Yeah.
voluntary action center.
I was like, I have my love.
Suzanne?
One thing I want to say about my observations of people who are homeless and mentally ill that are going through the system is sometimes it takes more than one
Yep.
approach. And you may see someone get into a home and maybe lose it because they invite too many other homeless people to stay with them in that home, which is against their needs. And then they have mental health issues, and it takes time. And I mean, it's like becoming an alcohol, dealing with alcoholism takes more than one intervention with people with mental health issues, so especially the homeless.
Yeah.
It takes more than one intervention in my observation.
Yeah. Yep. Because it's complex.
It's
Just like Debbie
complex.
said, it's complex.
And
Everyone's different.
everyone's different, and it doesn't, and those people are ones who really suffer from their mental illness.
Yeah.
I mean, I would not want to be them.
All right, I think that's time. Let's
Thank you for your time.
give a warm, thank you to
Oh,
Barbara
thank
for her time. I don't, there's no business I'm aware of to conduct, so I do want to pass around, if you haven't already signed, this is a card for our president, David Robinson, whose mother passed away. And so if you haven't already signed that, just let him know we're thinking of him. We have announcements. Pam, would you share